Have you ever wondered to yourself what Sean Taylor could have been if not for his unfortunate and tragic passing? His death is nothing to take lightly by any means, but he did pass away as a hero. Let's talk about what could have been with Sean Taylor. Sean Michael Maurice Taylor was born on April 1st of 1983 in a small town of Homestead, Florida. He grew up with his great-grandmother until about the age of 11, where he would move in with his father. Quick intermission. I know this looks funny and it sounds funny and everything. I'm still under construction and everything. So yeah, don't mind the quality of today's video. I hope you guys do enjoy though, and make sure to subscribe. Growing up, he was Christian, being baptized, and would unfortunately grow up in low-income housing with his father. He would attend high school at Pinecrest, but originally he played at Gulliver Preparatory High School. In 2000, where he would be considered a 3-star athlete in football, basketball, and track. And on top of all that, he would lead his football team to a state championship, going 14-1. He played and starred at running back, cornerback, safety, and linebacker as well. He was a Swiss Army knife, if you will. This season alone, he would rush for well over 1,400 yards and having a state record 44 rushing touchdowns, having multiple highlight games. He had more than 100 tackles this season as well. That same year, Taylor would win multiple awards and competitions in track as well. In high school, he would earn nicknames such as Meast, which meant half man, half beast. Unfortunately for you guys and even myself, nobody knows how to keep track of early recruits, so I have no idea who recruited Taylor or what college wanted him. What I do know though is that he stayed close to home, attending Miami. The University of Miami is. He would actually be an integral part of the 2001, an infamous 2001 Miami Hurricanes defense, which is arguably the best ever. Whilst the Hurricanes were known for being a turnover machine, snagging over 4 a game, Taylor took no part of that, and he proceeded to do what Sean Taylor does best: hit, tackle, and pure fundamentals, baby. That's what makes him such a great historic player. With him, it wasn't about how flashy he could be or how many turnovers he could force, but all about the fundamentals, which we've really strayed away from. Either way, in 2001, Taylor would play 10 games, having 26 tackles, and that's pretty much it. While he didn't have a lot of stats, he still helped lead the best college defense ever and also win a national championship that year as well. In 2002, Taylor would earn the starting role of safety that year, and this 2002 team would be nothing close to what the 2001 team was, but nonetheless, they were still pretty good. Taylor himself would have an outstanding season, starting in all 13 games, having 85 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 15 passes deflected, 4 interceptions, and for the first time, a forced fumble. At this point now, all NFL teams knew about this guy is that he can do pretty much anything on the defensive side of the ball, being an in-the-box safety, having shades of Ronnie Lott and Jack Tatum. He would also be elected to a second-team All-Big East selection. In 2003, Taylor would be, yet again, productive. He had 77 tackles for 10 interceptions this season, scoring 3 touchdowns off interceptions. Taylor would lead Miami to an 11-2 record, where they would go to the Orange Bowl and defeat Florida State University 16-14. The most memorable part of Taylor's collegiate career is in a 28-14 win over Pittsburgh, where he held All-American and future Hall of Fame wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald to just 3 catches for 26 yards. In 2003, he would be unanimously named to First Team All-American, Big East Conference Defensive Player of the Year, and a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, among other things. He tied and even broke records that season. On top of all this, Taylor would be really, really good in track and field as well. After 2003, he would declare for the NFL draft, where he would skip all combine drills and just meet with teams. His pre-draft measurables were 6 feet 2.5 inches tall, 230 pounds, and a 40-yard dash of 4.51. All of this was recorded at Miami's Pro Day. Taylor would be selected 5th overall by the Washington Redskins in the 2004 NFL Draft. 5 more of his Miami teammates would be drafted in the first round, which is a record that remains intact today. After being drafted by Washington, he signed a 6-year, $40 million deal. Now, he hated this deal and he thought this was the worst thing ever. He thought his agent didn't know what he was doing. He thought his agent couldn't negotiate, so he pretty much just kicked him out and hired his old agent back. The only reason I'm telling you all of this is because this would start a trend of Taylor's lack of caring. We'll dive more into that in just a minute. In training camp, Sean was told he'd be competing for the starting job and he'd have to earn it. Going into a preseason matchup against the Denver Broncos, he'd be considered a second-team player. In the second half, he would get his time to shine, and this is when Taylor proved to the world that he was something special, having not 1 but 2 interceptions in the second half and earning the starting role. Wait, no, that wasn't enough for Joe Gibbs, the head coach of Washington at the time. He would only record 1 tackle over the first 2 weeks of his career, and finally in week 3, he would be promoted to the starter. Who was the safety that started over him in any way? Andre Lott? Really? Anyways, in his starting debut, which would be against the rival Dallas Cowboys, he would stand out having 4 tackles and 2 passes deflected. He would keep his starting job all season, where he would wind up with 4 interceptions, 15 pass deflections, 1 sack, 78 tackles, along with 3 tackles for loss, and would finish 4th in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. You know how earlier I said Taylor didn't care? Well, I'm here to explain it. He would have problems early in his career, before he even played a snap, where he didn't want to attend the NFL's Rookie Symposium and would go on to get fined at least 7 times his rookie season for reasons such as late hits and uniform infractions. By the way, the NFL stands for No Fun League. In 2005, Taylor would switch from number 36, which he wore, to his iconic number 21. He would also be fined over $5,000 for wearing burgundy and gold striped socks, which is just obnoxious if you ask me. Because at the time, the required socks were just all white. It's a joke, but that's besides the fact. He led the Washington Redskins to a playoff berth, going 10-6 that season, with highlight wins being a 52-17 victory over the San Francisco 49ers and a 35-7 victory over the Dallas Cowboys. Washington would have a wild card matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where they would win 17-10. Taylor would record 7 tackles and have a fumble recovery for a touchdown of 51 yards. Taylor would be ejected after spitting in Michael Pittman's face. Yes, a different Michael Pittman, not the Colts wide receiver, but the father of the Colts wide receiver, so Michael Pittman Sr. Taylor would also be fined $17,000 for the incident. The Redskins would be eliminated in the following week, losing to the Seahawks 20-10, where Sean would record 7 tackles and a pass deflection. In his 15 games played, he would record 2 interceptions, 12 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, a touchdown, a sack, and 72 tackles. In 2006, which would be his best statistical career, he would rack up the best numbers of his career. He would have 114 tackles, 7 pass deflections, 3 forced fumbles, and an interception. He would also have a singular tackle for loss. This is when the transition from being lined up in the box to an up-top safety began. As you can see by the numbers, it really didn't matter where you put him. Either way, he would finish the season being elected to a Pro Bowl. He would have the infamous hit in the Pro Bowl that year where he smashed the Bills' punter. In 2007, Taylor would star at a safety position, having the most interceptions of his career and also having 9 pass deflections along with 41 tackles. Unfortunately, he would only play in 9 games. On November 18, 2007, 5 armed burglars broke into Taylor's home while Taylor, his fiancée, and their 1-year-old daughter were sleeping. Taylor awoke to investigate what was happening when he was shot in the leg, straight through the femoral artery, which made it even worse. Taylor would fight for his life throughout the night, but unfortunately would lose his life the next day. This would send ripples through the NFL, especially through Washington, as many young fans, young players, and even teams around were highly impacted by the death of Sean Taylor. Many fans looked up to Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor was an icon for Washington, and maybe even the NFL at the time. The NFL would mourn the loss of Taylor. They would commemorate Taylor by having all NFL helmets decorated with 21 on the back of it. On top of that, moments of silence were had at all games in Week 13. Taylor would be elected to a Pro Bowl and a second-team All-Pro following his death. On the first snap after Taylor's death, Washington would only line up with 10 players on the defensive side of the ball in memory of Taylor. All Washington Pro Bowlers wore 21 that year, and that year, they also lined up with only 10 players on the defensive side of the ball in the Pro Bowl. In honor of Taylor, the Redskins would do a bunch of temporary memorials, but one thing in particular I applaud them for was setting up a trust fund for Taylor's daughter, Jackie. He would be elected to Washington's Ring of Honor in 2008, and in more recent days, Washington, who are now the Commanders, have retired Taylor's number 21. And in his most recent NFL season, Washington unveiled a statue dedicated in honor of Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor was a role model for young people, and still today, many NFL players wear numbers in honor of Sean Taylor's legacy. One of those players in particular is Landon Collins, who has a lot of love for Taylor. His death was incredibly impactful across the NFL landscape. With his career just getting started and himself on the rise, his life would be taken from him unfairly and too early. We shall never forget Sean Taylor and what he did for the NFL. Thank you, and may you rest in peace.